Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel and another live stream today. Something a little bit different to what we have been talking about recently. Recently, we've been doing tactical previews, talking about how United should set up in the new season. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We are reacting to the somewhat recent news, although it's a little bit old now, that Carlos Baleba probably will not be signing for Manchester United this summer. Therefore, what we need to do is pivot into a different direction and try and find a different player that we can bring into the club. So that is going to be the plan for today, to address really the profile that we need in midfield, and then we've got 4 different players that we are going to be looking at and discussing their game and figuring out really whether or not they're the right player for Manchester United this summer. Before we do any of that though, get yourselves in the chat and let me know how you are. How is life? And how did you feel about the Manchester United performance this weekend? Because it was largely promising, largely exciting, to be honest, I felt, from Manchester United. But also we saw some certain weaknesses, certain flaws. Perhaps we learned a little bit about the midfield as well in that game. And perhaps we learned a little bit more about what we need. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. And then basically sort of as we warm up into the stream, we will be looking at some different alternatives. But yeah, get in a chat and let me know how you guys are doing. Stu Cantona, I am pretty well, my friend. I hope you are as well. Good morning, AJ. It's 40 degrees here. Totally melting, even with the AC on. It's not too bad where I am today. Last couple of weeks it's been really, really hot. Today's actually quite a nice temperature. You can sort of like breathe a little bit again, which is quite nice. Cunha looked amazing together with De Ligt and Yoro. I think there's some really good individual performances the other day. I think De Ligt was phenomenal. Best game in a Manchester United shirt. Long may that continue. I think Luke Shaw was good. And as you said, Cunha and Mbeumo were very, very impressive. Good performance, but the goalkeeper for me is a must. I hope you're well, mate. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the talks that we saw coming out this morning is that Manchester United probably will not be going for a first-choice goalkeeper. Basically because there was 12 days left of the window, we haven't got enough time to sell Onana and sign a first-choice goalkeeper. And that's the only way we can do it, right? Like, the only way we can get a goalkeeper is if we sell Onana first. But it seems as though we won't be selling Onana, so we can't get a keeper. So we're a little bit stuck in that department, which is disappointing. I think we have all felt all summer that we probably need someone new there. Although, I'll be honest, I am someone who is still of the opinion that Onana can be good for us. I think particularly some of the passing stuff we saw from Bayindir at the weekend, I absolutely think Onana could be used in a similar way. Of course, he's got those sort of cumbersome moments where he just drops the ball in his net. Hopefully, he can come over that and get over that and improve as a keeper. I think he can still be good for us. It seems unlikely that it changes now this summer, the goalkeeper situation. So, looks like it's Onana for this year, and then next summer we almost have to go for someone different. We've got David in the chat. Good morning to you, my friend. I hope you're well. And of course, he is there with the gifted membership. David, thank you very much, my friend. That's very, very kind of you, as always. Thank you very much. Good performance, but a decision not to start Ahmad and Šeško made us not score so early. I think with Šeško, it's a fitness thing. He didn't really have a pre-season at all with Leipzig. He came to Manchester United and trained for probably like 3 days or something. So I think he just physically wasn't up to the task. The Ahmad and Dalot call was actually one that I was quite fond of in the stream on Friday before kickoff. I did say that I would probably go for Dalot over Ahmad for a defensive dynamic, but also the attacking dynamic as well. And that was kind of proven late on when Ahmad and Mbeumo had a couple of clashes. There's still something that we need to figure out there, but over time, I think we will get there. Dan, good morning to you, my friend. How are you? How are you? We've also got Adele in the chat with five gifted memberships. Thank you very much, my friend. Your support recently has been insane. So thank you very much. As always, guys, you know what to do. If you see gifted memberships, renewals of memberships, super chats, anything like that, leave some love hearts in the chat for the gang. Just negotiation tactic. What, the Onana stuff? I don't think we're going to sell Onana, and I can't imagine us keeping Onana and signing a first choice keeper. I don't know what Onana's wages are like, but I just can't imagine him being a bench goalkeeper this season. And I don't think we're going to sell him this year. Perhaps I'm wrong. I had Dalot to start, but in hindsight, I think it should have been Ahmad against boring Arsenal. I'm still of the opinion that Dalot was actually the right call. I still think that was the right call. I think Dalot helped a lot of our early intensity with his physicality and things like that. I know, obviously, I was sort of number one complainer last season about not playing wingers in these wide positions. But I think Dalot was actually really useful to our performance and the way that we pressed, the way that we played off the ball. I would say set pieces, although obviously we conceded one, which was just the most stupid set piece I've ever seen. I still think Dalot was quite useful. I think he stretched the pitch quite nicely and allowed Mbeumo to come inside more. Whereas when Ahmad came on the pitch, they were both doing the same thing. And that was a little bit of a concern. You know that chance where Mbeumo comes in and is trying to get the shot off? In that situation, I know for a fact Dalot overlaps and takes the defender's attention just a little bit, giving Mbeumo more room. Whereas Ahmad sort of like drifted onto Mbeumo and created a bit of a problem. But again, hopefully, in time, those two are going to adapt. They're going to learn each other's game. It needs a lot of training time, but also a lot of match time together for them to figure it out, because instinctively, they do both want to come into this position. So what we need to try and do is work on their habits and things like that to try and get them to also offer each other the decoy support. Getting a cheeky bid for Edison. Yeah, Edison is another option. We're not actually going to discuss him today just because we've discussed him so much over the past probably 3 years now. We've spoken about him quite a lot. So we're not going to focus on Edison today. We are going to look at some slightly different options. Anyway, getting away from the goalkeeper discussion that we were having and also the Amad Dalot one, let's go into midfield. How do you guys feel that our midfield... Does that make sense? Basically, how did the midfield do at the weekend? What were your thoughts on the two in the middle of the park? Also, your thoughts on Ugarte when he came onto the pitch, his performance, but also the fact that he came on ahead of Kobbie Mainoo. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Let's try to get Onana from Villa. So yeah, he is another one that I would normally put into the conversation, but I'm not going to today just because, again, I've discussed Onana probably too many times. Everyone's probably a little bit bored of it. So Onana is an amazing option for United in this position. It'd be in my top 3 or 4 contenders, candidates for this position. But for today, we're going to ignore it just because there's other people to talk about that we haven't covered quite as much. If Amorim doesn't prefer Ugarte, then he should start Kobbie or Mount ahead of Casemiro. But Steve says, honestly, Casemiro was better than I expected and wasn't isolated too often. I think what we still lacked in this game, and we knew we were going to the second you start with those two, was that tempo management. It still felt very quick from United, which in a way really worked because it got Old Trafford sort of behind the players. The speed helped the occasion, the intensity. But I still think in moments we need to learn to then slow it down again. These two don't typically provide that because they are quite direct with the way that they play. Also, a couple of moments where in a transition, I think we looked a little bit vulnerable. Although I do wonder if that was a structural thing as much as anything. We were sort of obviously chasing a goal in the second half. We were quite aggressive with the way that we were playing. And it did feel that Arsenal could break if it weren't for Odegaard being really poor on the day, as well as Victor Gyökeres was terrible, which I quite enjoyed. Adele, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. My voice sounds a little bit weird this morning. I think I'm losing it again. Casemiro did okay. Not super, but just okay. I think that's fair. Bruno was very disciplined and proved me wrong, thankfully. We played a good match and Ruben Amorim coached to win. I think that last point is very important. Coached to win. We should have won that football match, which is a positive because there weren't many times last season where we said we should have beat blah, blah, blah. Particularly in a dominant fashion. You know, obviously we had decent results against Arsenal and City and Liverpool last year, but a lot of the time that came from sort of parking the bus and containing. I feel like this is the first time for a few years we've really got on the front foot against one of the big teams and deserved to win. So that was definitely a positive. We played them off the park for large parts of the game. But yeah, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. Casemiro has no legs. Kobbie has no legs. Ugarte can't play. Stiller from Stuttgart with a DM, even Ugarte. See, Stiller is obviously a very good player, particularly his passing game is really impressive, but I do see some similar problems for him as what I do Kobbie, in terms of the intensity, the ground coverage is a similar problem. Mount had to sacrifice himself to help the left side of midfield, but he done well, didn't he? I think Mount was phenomenal in that game. I think we lost something when he came off. I think we lost something. Arsenal pride themselves on being a possession-based team, and United doubled the possession. I think I saw a stat that only 3 times in the entirety of last season did Arsenal have less possession than the opposition. Something like that. So for United to boss them so much is really, really good. Amorim probably bought Ugarte over Mainu because he still wanted physicality. So I watch all the matches with my brother, and we were sort of talking through it at the time. We're 1-0 down at the time, and you're sort of looking at the bench. Who do you bring on? Šeško is the obvious one. Is it going to be for Mount or Cunha? It ended up being Mount. The midfield one was tricky because you can't play Arsenal and have an open midfield because they're too good in there, particularly with Declan Rice. You do need some intensity in the middle of the park still. So in that sense, I get the Ugarte sub because he is a better ball winner than what Mainu is. He is a bit more scrappy. He can handle himself physically a bit more off the ball, despite the fact that he's still quite flawed. He is the more physical, the more intense of the two. But the other side of that is we were 1-0 down and chasing a goal. And I think when you're Manchester United, particularly at Old Trafford, first day of the season, good energy in the stadium, you should really chase that goal. You know, not just slowly do it, really go after that goal. And if that's your intention, then Kobe makes so much more sense than Ugarte. So it's a bit of a weird one. You have to keep Ugarte because if we go too open in midfield, we might be 2 or 3-0 down. But also we need a goal, and Ugarte isn't going to bring that. So it's a difficult one. A difficult one. I would just play Mainu more and accept that he needs time and will play bad sometimes so he can develop. I think that's a good point as well. I also am not too worried about Kobe just yet. A lot of complaints and concerns online. I would complain, but I'm not concerned yet. There's still plenty of the season to go. First game of the season against Arsenal, it's not the biggest shock in the world that a 20-year-old didn't start the game, even though I still think we need to get to a point where he does start more regularly. We need a midfielder with Kobe's ball control, Casemiro's passing and intelligence, and Ugarte's ability to win the ball back. The problem is, Ugarte does have a good ability to win a ball back, but still probably not in the top 10 ball-winning midfielders in the Premier League. Probably not in the top 15. That's the problem with Ugarte. His sort of strength, the thing that Ugarte is good at, is winning the ball back. You know, that's his trademark, if you like, is being aggressive and winning the ball. A lot of the time, he just isn't particularly good at doing it. That's the problem. That's the problem. He's not bad at it, but he's not amazing at it. He mistimes his duels very often. He often gets shrugged off the ball. He doesn't cover large spaces well. He covers small spaces. So that's sort of the problem, I think, with him at the moment. Did I miss another super chat from Adele? I did. Posted Stiller's stats on player discussion on Discord for anyone who wants to check them out. Well, my friend, that is a lovely little plug for the Discord. Guys, at the top of the chat, you will see a link to our Discord server, completely free to join, loads of football chat and a load of positive football chat. So if you do want to get involved, that is the place to be. And thank you very much for the super chat once again, my friend. AJ, do you think all that Baleba has over Mainu is just pace and physicality? No, I think one thing that Baleba possesses over Kobe is the long distance carrying. And that's where we talk about the difference between dribbling and carrying. I think Kobe's a very good dribbler in midfield. I think if it's tight, he can beat players. I think if he's got 30 yards ahead of him, open space, he's not great at driving into it. You know, for example, you'd call Kobe Mainu a dribbling midfielder. You'd call Rice a carrying midfielder over large gaps. Baleba's probably a really nice blend of the two, which is why he would have been so nice. Part of me still thinks it could be possible with Baleba. You know, I don't think it's impossible, but probably unlikely now. We played our best performance under Amorim at the moment. Mainu doesn't have the intensity that he wants to see right now. Let's not force him to start. Should earn it like everyone else. Yeah, exactly. I think the concern that people have in the longer term is just, is Kobe ever going to be the man for a midfield two? Well, is anyone at this football club ever going to be the man for a midfield two? Do any of these actually excel in double pivots? I think that's the question that a lot of people have in terms of pointing fingers at Amorim. A lot of people want a three-man midfield, you know, a 4-3-3 perhaps, which is understandable because everyone in the world does it. So I do get that. I do get that. Need to travel back to 2015 and sign Kante. Not a bad idea. It's athleticism, not just physicality. Yep, I think that's a very good point. Why not? Why get a Baleba alternative? Just put the Wharton in the bag and get Baleba next year. Well, that kind of brings us nicely onto the conversation of players that we could sign in midfield, because I still feel personally, no matter what direction we go with the profile that we need something. I don't think Bruno, Kobe, Casemiro, Ugarte is good enough. In terms of volume, there's enough. I like that there's 4 players there. That's probably enough for us this season. But the balance of profiles isn't right. We need someone new. How about Adam Wharton? Currently plays his football for Crystal Palace. Have a quick look at his Data MB report from the past 365 days. It will give you a pretty good idea of what this young man is. He's not a ball carrier, so he's not a Baleba. It's not like for like with Baleba. But what he is a passer. A passer. And Manchester United have needed that in midfield since Michael Carrick. I mean, Nemanja Matic and Paul Pogba brought it to an extent, but not the tempo control that we wanted. Adam Wharton's passing range, his passing ability is an absolute joke. The speed with which he passes a football is phenomenal. He could be an option for Manchester United. Let's see if I can find him. What do you guys think of Adam Wharton as a potential solution? We'll discuss a potential partner who would play next to him shortly. But what do you think in terms of Wharton potentially coming into the Manchester United midfield? Is that something that you would want to see? Or does he not bring enough of what we need right now? Let me know what you think in the chat. First time catching you live, just wanted to say that I'm loving seeing the channel growth. You should be really proud of the progress you're making. Quality videos, mate, keep it up. Well, first of all, James, welcome to the first live stream. Hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for the kind words, my friend. That is quality. Thank you very much. We were offered Wharton before Crystal Palace, but we said no thanks. Yeah, not a great decision in hindsight, although it did always feel that he needed that move to get a bit of Premier League experience first before then going to a top club, perhaps. But AJ, his forward pass percentage is very low, and that's an important point when we talk about Wharton. Wharton is a passing maestro. Passing range is phenomenal. It's an absolute joke. And he's labelled as a sort of Spanish Englishman. And that's how I talk about him. He doesn't play football like an English midfielder. He plays football like a Spanish midfielder. So he passes the ball very well. He understands the flow of the game quite nicely and has a ridiculously good ability to punch the ball forward. However, as you did notice in those stats, the passing forward percentage is actually a little bit low. And that's not because he's a bad passer. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's because, like certain other footballers at this club, when he does pass the ball, it tends to be forward, which means sometimes he's going to overturn possession. So he's a bit like Casemiro in that sense, right? You know, Casemiro forces the ball forward a lot, so therefore loses the ball a lot. Wharton is a little bit like that. I think he is going to be one of the best passing footballers in the Premier League. I think to go to the next level, what he needs to do is slow down sometimes. The tempo he plays with is phenomenal. I love it. But I think true tempo controllers, not only do they speed it up and fire it through the lines when their team needs to up it, but the true tempo controllers also slow it down and take extra touches and play sideways sometimes. I think that's somewhere where Wharton could be useful. Wharton is quality and a massive upgrade on what we have. I think I would agree with that. We need a Bruno Guimaraes type of midfielder. We just need Guimaraes. What a player. One of my favourite in the league. AJ, I'm on the party of Wharton is a Bruno type, way different from Baleba. I would agree with that. And that's the question now with what we do. If it isn't to be Baleba, how do we approach the situation? Is it a case of getting Baleba 2.0, someone who is a very close profile to Baleba and can bring the same things? Or is it you get someone different, for example, a Wharton, who's more of a passing player, and then next year get Baleba, and then imagine next year you partner the two of them together? Is that the sort of direction you go in? That's what we have to figure out. His passing volume is very low, lower than Edison, Baleba, Stiller. We have to consider the football club as well, of course. Crystal Palace are not a side that press stupidly high up the pitch. They're not a team that always play the ball out from the back. They'll often play reasonably direct up towards Mateta. They don't have great possession numbers, so that would be one of the reasons why Wharton doesn't have that many touches and passes of the ball. I think he will get to be a maestro who fully runs a game, so I'm not too concerned about that. It would cost a lot. Yes, he would cost a lot of money. I think we're talking probably not miles off of Baleba, just a little bit cheaper. A little bit cheaper, I would have thought. Sandro Tonali. Final nail in the coffin for Newcastle fans. Go and take one of their best players. Corey, good morning, my friend. How are you? Is there a chance Adam Wharton leaves this summer? I think it could happen. Right, I think it could happen. I think if you went in with a lot of money, they'd have to consider it. They would have to consider it. I think it would be tough, though. I think it would be tough. A little bit like Baleba. I think it's one of those ones where you could pursue the deal for a few days, get the player on the side, get the player wanting to move. Then it's, can you agree with Palace? It's going to be difficult. This late in the window, they would ask for a lot of money. But whenever you get Wharton, he's going to be expensive, right? I think Wharton is on the list for a lot of people for next summer. Next summer, he's probably going to be even more expensive because he's probably about to have a good season, maybe even a good World Cup next year. Plus, next year, you'll have the bidding war, everyone coming in for him. Same with Baleba, to be fair. So it may be expensive this year, but potentially still cheaper than what it'd be next year. Henrik in the chat with the channel membership. Thank you very much, my friend. I feel like I haven't spoken to you in ages, mate. How are you? How has life been? It's good to see you, but thank you very much for the channel membership. Boubacar Kamara, nice option. I think difficult to get right now, though. Thoughts on Felix Mecha? Very good footballer. I like him a lot. Was a big fan of him earlier in the window. I'm not sure he's a Bruno partner still, which concerns me a little bit. And that is the problem with a lot of these guys, right? How do you partner them? How do you partner them? Who do you put alongside them? You know, next to Wharton, it's arguably an Ugarte type. But then where's Bruno in the team? Not sure. I will be honest. United have gone about the transfer business this summer and signed phenomenal players. Let's make that very clear. But they have done it differently to what I would have done. The way that we've tried to build the balance of the team, particularly across that front five, is just different to what I would have done. I would have taken a different route personally, but that's just me. You know, I was always of the opinion that we should fix the left side of the attack with a left wing back rather than the right side of the attack with Mbumo and an Ahmad to wing back. I think that would have been easier. Henrik is also in the chat with 5 gifted memberships. So we've had 10 gifted memberships already this stream. Thank you very much again for the generosity. That is incredibly kind of you. Yeah, thank you very much. Guys, if you did get gifted a membership, make sure to say thank you because that is legendary behavior. At this point, Bruno is the problem. It's a weird one, isn't it? It's really weird to figure out. I think what my opinion is, in terms of building the balance, for me, it's not about getting a certain profile. It's not about we have to have a midfielder who covers large distances, or it has to be a midfielder that passes the ball a lot, or it has to be a press-resistant midfielder. But it needs to be one of them, if you see what I'm saying. I don't mind which one. We can address that next summer. But I think we need to pick one and go for it. I think that's what we need to do. Personally, I like the idea of more of a passing player. And I said this even when we were linked with Baleba. As good as Baleba was, or is, if we had signed him, we still would have lacked the passing player in midfield. Baleba is another one who, if he signs for the club, is a carrier another player that wants to carry the ball first rather than passing it. So a bit like Cunha, a bit like Mbumo, a bit like Ahmad. Another player that wanted to drive and dribble when he could. Whereas someone like Wharton would be that more passing alternative for us, which is why I do still like Wharton links. But there is that question over athleticism off the ball, of course. Good morning, AJ. We went through all of these weeks chasing someone and no end product. What I'll say is this: I will be incredibly disappointed in the recruitment department at Manchester United if we do not recruit and strengthen the midfield this summer, because I think it is the most obvious gap we've had in the team for a long time. Ugarte, of course, we signed last summer, but for me, I said it when we signed him, was only ever going to be a squad option, never a starter for this football club. We've still got that problem. We can't have that problem 2 years in a row. Not under the same leadership. We can't have that for 2 years. So something does need to change, in my opinion. I think Baleba's carrying is good for us. It means Bruno doesn't keep dropping back. I think it's good in one sense, in the idea that, yes, you get that drive in midfield. But personally, I am a person that likes a footballer that passes a lot. My two favourite central midfielders to ever play football are Michael Carrick and Tony Kroos, which probably says a lot about what I want from my midfielder. You know, I want that tempo control. I want some passing. Having said that, Wharton isn't there yet in that sense. He doesn't do the tempo control yet, but I think he will get there. I think he'll get there. Won't sign anyone else this summer. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So what are our thoughts on Wharton overall? Do we think, like, yes, phenomenal player, but not what we need? Or, yes, go and get him, and then next year you go for that physical option next to him? I mean, what I have in my head, right, is I think Bruno will still leave in the next 2 years. Maybe after the World Cup, maybe the year after. I think Bruno will then leave. I can't get out of my head the idea of having something like and I'm aware this is a lot of money and it's a bit dreamy, but having something like a Wharton, Baleba, where is he? Kobe Mainoo midfield 3 someday. Like, I can't get my head past that. Something like that. The balance that would bring to United would just be so much better than anything we've had in the last 10, 12 years. But obviously that's sort of long-term thinking. But that is what Manchester United need to do. We need to improve ourselves now. We need to get better as a football club immediately. But we do also have to plan for the long term. That's why we've signed someone like Lenny Yoro, because he's young and a long-term signing as well. What happens to Mainoo if we get Wharton? I don't think anything changes, because I don't think Kobe is in Amarim's first 2 currently. And I don't think that changes with Wharton. I think Wharton would still be, Kobe's role doesn't change. He's still not in the first 2 in terms of the pecking order of midfielders. I still think he would be around 3rd or 4th. By the way, guys, if you are sending messages here with all capital letters or spamming the same message over and over again, I'm just not going to read them, and the mods are probably going to remove them from the chat. So if you want me to see your message, put it once, lowercase. I might read it, I might not. But spamming it or all caps, it's not happening. Just so you know. I think we need a ground eater for Bruno right now. Onana, Kone, Baleba type. It's tricky. It's really... I guess the situation is, if you're backing Amarim, which you might as well do, like, he's staying, right? If you're Ineos and you've chosen to keep Amarim after last season, if you're going to back him properly, and you sign what he's asked for this summer, which is intensity. He's asked for an intense player. In which case, Adam Wharton probably comes off of the list. Right? Amarim all summer has seemingly wanted an all-energy midfielder. Wharton's not that. So we have to pivot. We have to look at a different option. Let's put Bruno Fernandes back in midfield, because I think he's likely to play this season. How about then someone like this young fella here? Elliot Anderson. I think he's 22 years old. I've written down. Yes, 22 years old. Elliot Anderson. For me, my favourite player in the Premier League right now. Right now. That doesn't mean he's the best, but he's the player that I watch, and I'm just happy watching him play football. Probably the last player I got that feeling with was Jude Bellingham back at Birmingham, or Grealish when he was at Villa. Players that I want to turn the telly on and watch their match just for that player. Like, I don't care about the football club that they're playing for. Couldn't care less. I don't care how the team structurally plays. I just want to watch him play football. Elliot Anderson is that man for me in the Premier League right now. I haven't had it for a few years. A player that has sort of grabbed my attention so much. I haven't had that for a long time. Elliot Anderson is doing that right now. There's a feeling I get with this guy that I think he can be super, super special. I just can't find him. Here he is. I think Elliot Anderson can be one of the best players in the Premier League, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League in the next 2 to 3 years. Maybe quicker. I think he is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And what I love is that he is what I would describe as a proper midfielder. A proper midfielder. And what I mean by that is he's not necessarily a 6. He's not necessarily a 10. He just does absolutely everything that you could want. If you want someone that can duel, it's him. If you want someone to cover small spaces, it's him. Large spaces, it's him. Pass, it's him. Carry, it's him. Challenge aerially, it's him. Create, it's him. Screen, it's him. A midfielder that can just do everything. I love that profile. An 8. Someone you put in the middle of the park and they do every job and just make the life of everyone around you easier. That's why I like this young man. I just think he's a very, very good footballer. Of course, when you look at things like stats, you've always got to remember, again, the club he's playing for. No disrespect to Nottingham Forest, but they're not the most modern team, if you like, with the way that they play at times, which is always going to skew some of the numbers. Sick to death of English players, get out. Sick to death of English players. Let me just quickly check the starting 11. Luke Shaw. We haven't exactly got many. Seems no one else now is in for Baleba, but next season it'll be an auction. Yeah, it will be mental next year. The Baleba bidding war. If he has a good year, which he probably will. Yeah, it's going to get busy. How much would he cost, Anderson? Genuinely no idea. He's not going to be cheap, but I don't think he would be in the same bracket as Baleba and Wharton. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm completely wrong with that. I don't think he would be as expensive as them. Perhaps it's he doesn't have the same reputation or something like that. I don't know. Not even played senior international football yet. But I get the feeling it'd be a little bit cheaper. What do you think of Wharton and Anderson double pivot? I honestly think at that point you would have close to, that's a phenomenal double pivot. That's what, if you could make a double pivot, they're the sort of profiles you put in there. Or Wharton and Baleba. They're the sort of options we're looking at here. Anderson is the ultimate facilitator in there, similar to Ryan Christie. Yeah, genuinely, just a player that immediately is going to improve everyone around him because of his ability to do everything to a good standard. I think if you're trying to make the ideal Manchester United double pivot and you go, is it Ugarte and Bruno? Is it Ugarte and Casemiro? Whatever. If you sign Anderson, it's Anderson and someone. That's the level of player I think he is. I think he's just one of those types that can play with almost anyone and just improve the level. I think he's that sort of player. In the absolute ideal world, it's sort of a playmaker he plays with, in my opinion. Adele in the chat again with another super chat. This man is relentless right now. Thank you very much. Saying views on the Sancho ordeal. Get him gone. Drop kick him out of the football club. I've had enough of Jadon Sancho. Just drop kick him. Just get him gone. Boot him away. If it's £3, please. I just had enough. I've just had enough of his name. I like him as a footballer. I really do. But I've just had enough of the whole situation. Obviously, we need to get money for him. Obviously, we do. But I just had enough. Anderson got a £35 million move from Newcastle last year, so it would cost more than that. Yeah, I would imagine, 60, 70 would be my guess for Anderson. But I think he is worth that for what it's worth. Elliot Anderson has poor passing stats. He does indeed. But I think we've got to remember that stats aren't everything. They can certainly be used to get an idea of a player, but I think the context of the stats is very important. If you think you're playing for Nottingham Forest, you're spending a lot of time behind the ball, you're sitting very deep. When you win the ball back and try and play, a lot of the time you're being counter-pressed very quickly. So a lot of the time, it's not even failed passes, they're actually just clearances into an area to try and get your team out. That is something to consider. How is he under pressure, Anderson? I wouldn't say press resistant. I wouldn't say he's sort of like the first phase master that drops in and plays like Baleba with the turns that we've seen from him or Frankie de Jong. I wouldn't say Anderson is that sort of player, but he's still comfortable enough in the first phase. Again, he would be better than most of the players that we've got, apart from probably Kobe and Bruno. I would say would be the better two in the first phase still. Yeah. If Anderson was that good, he would be playing for Newcastle. Anderson would quite comfortably get into that Newcastle midfield. It was sort of a PSR loophole, I believe, as far as I'm aware. There was a deal done there to... They had to do it for financial reasons. It's one of the most stupid transfers in football. I hate that it's a thing that clubs have to sell their academy players just to carry on running at a high level. But that's what Anderson was sort of the victim of, if you like. If Anderson hasn't shown the attributes that we need, what's the point of signing him? Well, exactly. The good thing is he plays for more than one football team. He plays for Nottingham Forest, right? But if you watch him in a different environment, England under-21s, which I'm aware it's a different level of football, but we're talking about the environment he's now playing in, the tactical environment, you suddenly see him in a team that's dominating possession, and this man was running the show. Absolutely running the show. Talking about pass percentages, Elliot Anderson was everything. He was the heartbeat of that England team which won the tournament. Everything went through him. When England were in trouble, they went to him. When England wanted to slow down, they went to him. When they want to speed up, they went to him. So he is that player on the ball who can change the tempo and increase the pace, but also slow it down. So he's quality, don't worry. What do you think about Locatelli? Phenomenal footballer. Big fan of Locatelli. I do always have concerns with Locatelli in terms of how he would get on in the Premier League. I just don't know how his game would sort of transfer over. I always have a little bit of concern. But I do think he's a very good player. A very good player. Another pretty darn good player is this man here. Let's quickly whack his face up on screen. Agoume, currently playing for Sevilla. I previously, earlier in the summer, labelled him as potentially the perfect profile for the Manchester United midfield. That was with a particular focus on the defensive side of the game. Very good player. And this morning, we're being linked with him again. Now, I don't know how good these sources are because I'm not really entirely clued up on what sources are good, what ones are absolutely terrible. But Agoume is a good footballer, regardless of whether the sources linking us are good or not. This man is a very, very good player. And he's another one of those ones which can be a 6, he can be an 8, because he's just physically very good. He's got a very good sort of sound structural foundations. He's just a good central midfielder. He's just good at football, and it helps to have those in your midfield. Players that don't have an obvious weakness, a glaring problem that teams are going to target, or an obvious thing that we have to try and cater for. You know, we've had so many players at the club over the past few seasons where we go, okay, they're good at this, but they're terrible at defending, so we need this to help them out. Or they're great at this, but they're bad at this. They're bad at defending, or they're bad at covering space, so we need someone to cover them. Agoume, a bit like Anderson, is one of those players where he doesn't have the obvious weakness. He's just a good footballer, which makes fitting him into any team, any system, just a lot easier. I think he's probably the closest to Baleba that we've spoken about so far today, I would say, but still not the same player because he's not a press-resistant first phase player. He's, again, solid on the ball, a bit like Anderson. He looks after the ball well, but Agoume's a little bit safer. So when we were talking about Baleba, where is he gone? Over here. When we were talking about Baleba, we were talking about a player that in the first phase, teams wouldn't even bother pressing because he was so good. So these passes in here, teams wouldn't even bother going after him because he's so capable of spinning like 3 or 4 players in one go and moving forward. Agoume isn't that, unfortunately. He's a bit safer. He's a bit more of a player that's going to sort of protect the ball in this first phase rather than spinning out himself. Now, here's where we have to think about the manager a little bit. What does he want? Because the evidence so far is that he doesn't really want someone to spin out. If you wanted someone to spin out in the first phase, you'd play... I've lost him again. He's very evasive today. If you wanted someone to spin out in the first phase a lot, you'd play Kobe Mainoo. And we very, very, very rarely seen Mainoo playing in that deep double pivot. So perhaps he doesn't want pure press resistance. Perhaps he wants the ball protector. and a player that can sort of play with some of those patterns that we saw at the weekend, where you are popping the ball into midfield and then kind of popping the ball wider to the wide centre-backs. If you want Agoume to do that, yeah, I think he's very, very capable. Imagine Baleba and De Jong in the same team. No one in the world would press him. There are links that we are putting a £26 million bid in. Yeah, I've seen the links. Like I said, I just don't know how good the source is. Agoume, in my opinion, would never be more than a squad player. Yeah, he can do some of everything. But is there a thing he is brilliant at? That's a good question. I think his biggest strength is dueling off the ball. I would comfortably say I think he's better in defensive 1v1s than Ugarte is. I think he's got those longer legs, so it's difficult to get past him. He's got a slightly stronger upper body, which he uses well. So I would say he's a ball-winning midfielder with ball-playing capabilities, is probably how I would label him. Very good out of possession, covers a lot of ground really well, good stride length, eats up the ground pretty effectively, good in 1v1 battles, half decent in the air as well. On the ball, I don't know that there's an area where he excels, but he's sort of a steady Eddie in most areas. He can carry the ball at times, he can sort of motor away from players. I think his passing can be quite nice as well. Some of his sort of tempo-changing passing, where he sort of baits in the opposition with the first touch, and then the second one he plays it around the corner. I think he's good on the ball. I think he's a little bit underappreciated. Is he? No, yeah, you're right. He's not a specialist in any part of ball playing. That's what I was just trying to think through. Edison is a good option, to be honest. Yeah, we would have spoken about Edison. It's just we've spoken about him so many times recently that, or not even recently, just in the past 2-3 seasons, that I don't want to go over it again because we've discussed him a lot on this channel. So the sources right now on Agoume are not solid ones. Yes, that's one of them ones. Is Agoume fast enough around the pitch? I think he's pretty good with his ground coverage. I think he's quite good with his acceleration. His recovery numbers last season were very good. I haven't got them to hand now. But his recovery numbers were very impressive last season. The way that he would sort of help Sevilla win the ball back was quite impressive. Surely any professional footballer should be able to receive a pass under a bit of pressure facing his own goal and pass it off. I don't get why this isn't being worked on in training as a priority. Yes. I completely agree. I completely agree. I always also have the same opinion on all players should be two-footed. All players should be two-footed. Everyone should be able to play with their right foot and their left foot. It should be a requirement to be a professional footballer. You shouldn't be allowed to step on the Premier League football pitch if you can't use both feet. But weirdly, we're still in a world where there are those players that can't. I think with this first phase part it's about being able to play the psychological game as well. When we put De Ligt in midfield, obviously in that first phase where he sort of, some people call it inverting, I'm not sure what term I would use, but certainly he steps up into midfield. His passing work the other day was good. The way that he would sort of pop the ball off was lovely. The problem is long term, teams are going to know that he's going to do that. Right? I think after 2 or 3 weeks, that sort of pattern becomes quite predictable. He's only going to play off his right foot. It's obvious where we want to go. Teams will be able to trap us. When teams are doing that, De Ligt doesn't have the ability to surprise them. He doesn't have the ability to suddenly drop the shoulder, whoops, see you later, mate, and spin past you. If he did, teams would be more hesitant to press. That's where I'm a little bit unsure. Do we need more of a specialist, someone who can throw up those shocks to make teams question it? I said it earlier. Baleba, I don't think teams would bother pressing him because he can throw in those surprises. De Ligt when he's in there, Ugarte when he's in there, Casemiro, they can't. Kobe could, Bruno could, here and there. Agoume's sort of like, he's in a sort of, just a two packs and he's kind of in between a little bit. I think he could do a decent job of it, but like I said, he's not a specialist. Postman time? Yeah, I'd assume so. All professional footballers should be able to beat the first man from a corner too. Exactly. City only recruit two-footed players. We're just strange at scouting. Yeah. One important thing, AJ, last summer we had to choose between Ugarte and Zubamendi. So was Ugarte a better or a bad choice? Your thoughts on Zubamendi also? I like Zubamendi. I think he's a good player. I think perhaps in a hindsight, I think Zubamendi could have been nicer for what Ten Hag wanted to do, because Ten Hag was a fan of a three-man midfield. I think in a two-man midfield, I think Zubamendi would have a lot of problems, particularly, again, next to someone like Bruno. I think that would be a problem for us. So, yeah, I don't think Zubamendi would be quite right for us until we potentially play a different system. It's a crime not to include Manu Kone. Manu Kone is another one. He's in that Edison bracket. Great player. Same as Onana as well. I've spoken about him too many times. My videos, my reports bigging up Kone go back 3.5 years. Seriously good footballer. But I've just spoken about him a lot. So it's nice to talk about someone different for a change. I agree. So Amorim needs to recognise this and start having the players practice that. De Ligt should be working on that. I completely agree. I think that's where, if we just go back one moment, someone like Wharton offers us something a little bit different. Because, like I said, I fear we might become a little bit predictable with that pattern we saw the other day, where you go into midfield and then pop it out. What we've got at the moment is only right footers in there. You know, De Ligt, Bruno, Kobe, Casemiro, Ugarte. When they're playing their pop passes, they're all going to pop it out this way, towards Euro. If I know that, you guys know that, other teams know that. That's where Wharton could be quite useful, because it would give us the opportunity to sometimes go out the other way to someone like Luke Shaw. The other players on this list aren't left-footed, unfortunately, so probably don't come into the same bracket of problem solving. It is one of the reasons why I like Wharton. It's why I liked Baleba. A left-footed midfielder would help us quite a lot. If you talk about Manu Kone anymore, Gasperini will visit you in your home. Exactly. I've done too many years of talking about Manu Kone. Seriously good player, though. He sort of stalled for one season after I spoke about him, but has then gone up again really nicely. Kone or Baleba? Who's the better player? Baleba. Who's more affordable right now? Kone. What's your ideal build-up structure? For me, Nick, it's not even about the structure. It's not about the shape. It's about who's where. For me, I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate football at times. For me, simple things. The ones that are in the middle should be ones that are capable of playing in the middle. The ones that have everything in front of them should be ones that are good playing more direct with things in front of them. So it's not necessarily about a specific shape or structure. It's about the players in the middle should be able to receive under pressure. The players here should have a good passing range. Things like that, rather than an exact shape. Guerra just signed a new contract, I believe. Oh, and Adele reckons Kone did as well. There we go. Opinion on Camavinga. Very good footballer. Very good footballer. Do you think Zakaria can fit? I haven't watched enough of him for a few years now. I don't know the last time I watched Zakaria, actually. A long time ago, so I couldn't really tell you. Sad to say this, but I don't think Mainu's going to make it. He doesn't have the physicality to play as a central midfielder in the Premier League. Am I wrong? I don't want to outright say you're wrong, but I think you are. I think he's not a guaranteed hit, but for me, he's close to it. You know, in terms of the physicality comment, Bernardo Silva's played at Manchester City for a long time in midfield and isn't a particularly physical player. You know, there's been small midfielders that have dominated this division. You know, Bruno Fernandes physically isn't great. Granted, he's got the intensity, but, you know, Bernardo Silva doesn't have great intensity to the way that he plays. Defensively, doesn't offer much at all, but can still make it. The problem that Kobe has got is, for him to make it, he's got to make it at Manchester United, where the environment isn't perfect and the team is still quite far from being perfect. You know, it's almost easy to go into that City team. Certainly 2 years ago it was. Easy to go into that City team because they're ready-made. They're quality. They're good at everything. It's easier to slot in. There's enough players around you that can sort of mask your weaknesses. United don't have that so much. We don't have that so much. It's some of my concern with the system a little bit, in the sense that I think it exposes certain weaknesses of some of our key players. But I think we'll be okay. Bernardo Silva is much quicker, though. I don't know that he is, personally. He's slow. He's slow. We don't talk about Bernardo Silva here, AJ. Okay, I do apologise. He is slow, though. He is slow. I think he clocked, he was in the top 5 for slowest top speed in the Premier League last season, I'm pretty sure. Heard rumours that Chido might be loaned out. I'd be a little bit surprised, just because of the lack of striker options. It's interesting yesterday that we certainly, or seemingly went, Xerxes not for sale, by the way, guys, but if you want Hoyland, he's right there, come and get him. Onana of Villa, yeah, would be very nice. Is this Agoume guy capable of filling that hole for a whole season, though? Yes, and actually that's what makes me more confident of the signing of him. I think he is a great signing. I've lost him. Here he is. I think he would be a really nice signing to come in and be, rather than necessarily immediately upgrading our midfield to the next level. I think what he does is he allows us to steadily improve over a couple of years, but still go for that world beater next summer. You know, if this year you can't get your Wharton, or you can't get your Baleba, or your Camavinga, or whoever, Agoume is a nice one as a stopgap for a year, 18 months. Then you go and get the big boy, but Agoume is still quality squad depth and can deputise in the first team when you need him to. I actually like him as that. Cheaper option, next year you go big. I don't mind it. Don't mind it. Cobby also needs time to develop his game. Yeah, exactly. I want him to play more. I think he's good enough to play more already. But he also needs time to get better. Yeah, he's 20 years old. He's 20 years old. We've seen Ousmane Dembele really hitting his prime at the moment. At what, 26, 27? After struggling for 5 years? Players shouldn't be in their prime at 20. Who would be your dream double pivot, picking any two of the players mentioned, including Kone, Edison, etc.? Honestly, Baleba and Wharton would be up there as a duo. I think those two would be phenomenal. Yeah, it's hard to look past those two as a double. It's hard to look past those two. I think it would be a Casemiro signing, since we don't have many huge aspirations for this season. What do you mean by that? Sorry. I'm not quite picking up what you're putting down there. Is Agoume better than Ugarte? In my opinion, yes. I think he's a better fit for what we need. I think he's a better fit. I think physically he's better than Ugarte. He maybe doesn't have the same sort of like, almost that South American aggression at times where he's going to go about and bite into tackles and crunch people like Ugarte does. I think he's almost more measured with the way that he defends. He just uses his body better. He reads situations better. He's almost a cooler head and better physically, which for me is a nicer dynamic of a player. By the way, Baleba isn't good with progressive passing. It's not his speciality, put it like that. I hate Silva, and he's definitely quicker. Look at the stats. I might be wrong with this. I'll put it in Discord later if I find it. I am sure Bernardo Silva registered in the bottom 6 for the slowest speeds in the Premier League last season. Sure he did. I might be wrong. Souček was up there as well. Casemiro was. I'm sure Bernardo Silva was one of them. Elliot Anderson is really good. Dribbling, close control, amazing. Completely agree. Completely agree. Another name that I do just want to throw out there is probably unlikely, but this is a player that I've been talking about for 5 years now. 5? 6? Whatever it is. We should have got him last summer. We should have got him last summer. I think he went for something stupid like 12 or 15 million, something around that. We should have been all over that. I did a video on it last year saying it at the time. We got linked and I was like, yes. As a short-term solution, we should have been all over this guy. £15 million to immediately improve the Manchester United midfield. But again, a player that now we could be signing big to replace him would have been lovely. Would have been lovely. Adele again in the chat with a super chat. Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes out next summer. Baleba and Wharton in. Perfect window. Also need to line up a Maguire replacement since he's leaving this summer. I think we will be having a central centre-back conversation next year, unless De Ligt continues performing like he did at the weekend, because he was phenomenal. Yeah, I think we are also going to be having a Bruno conversation again next summer, just because we had it this year. I think it will be back next year. It seems to be the thought. But thank you very much for the super chat once again. Very, very kind of you. Sander Berge too old now. Yeah, the problem is he's 27, which isn't that old. He's fine. He's got 6 years at the top still comfortably. The problem is he's probably now too much. We should have been there last summer. We should have been there last summer. instead of Ugarte, we should have gone here to save money, about £30 million, if not more, which we could now be putting towards someone bigger. So we could be about to turn Sander Berge into a bench player, because right now we'd have the money, the funds for a Baleba or someone. That's why it's a little bit annoying how we did things. Yeah, De Ligt was quality. Quality, he was so good. We should not sign anyone. If we don't get Baleba, we should sign him next summer. I think that's where you sort of turn to Agoume again. If Baleba's going to be an option next year, do we go for the stopgap, who can then become a squad player? Agoume could be that option for us, I think, personally. Bergvall was a huge miss as well. He's a good player, really good player. Sarr from Tottenham, David. I say this quite a lot. I hate Spurs as a football club for obvious reasons. I seriously like parts of their squad. Sarr and Bergvall, two of my favourite midfielders in the league. Sarr is seriously impressive. What do you think of Guendouzi? I haven't watched him since he was at Arsenal, so that's several years, so I couldn't really tell you anything, unfortunately. Let me read up the chat. Brighton don't really use Baleba in the build-up much, do they? Doesn't mean he can't become a progressive type passer if in a different setup. Yeah, that was something that I sort of said in a lot of my videos, that Baleba isn't right now a top passer, but I think he could become it. That was sort of my point. Stack would have been a good stopgap as well. Yep, I agree. I think we need a big lad. Casemiro is still useful, but Bruno needs a water carrier. Sander Berge, right there. We've been linked to Agoume the most, I think, because of the Baleba next summer reason. It does make sense. It does make sense. Thoughts on Florentino Luis from Benfica? Really good player. Really good player. But he never quite kicked on like I thought he would. I actually tipped him as a Manchester United signing probably 3 years ago, and I was confident it was only a matter of time before he'd end up at one of the top Champions League clubs. But I don't know whether it's his mentality or injury problems or what. He just didn't kick on. He just never really went to the next level and sort of plateaued a little bit, but still a good player. Could we try and sign Baleba in the January window? We could. I just don't think Brighton would be likely to let him go halfway through the season, just because they wouldn't be able to replace him there and then. At least in the summer, they can go and sign their replacement straight away. I think they'd probably struggle to do that in January, so I think the price would go up. In this window, we need 2 keepers, sell Laurel and Hardy instead of the midfield. Goalkeepers, eh? Goalkeepers. Brighton won't sell Baleba until next summer. Yeah, that seems to be my thought now. Why are Spurs so good in recruiting in midfield? Seriously, they've got some good players in there. Where do we go wrong? Glazers. That's where we went wrong for a long time. A long time. Hillman is a good player as well. Yeah, I think he's another one that we've been linked with quite a lot. I was keen on it, or not keen, but I saw how it could work based on old Amorim quotes. More recent Amorim quotes, to me, suggest he's not the player, because it seems that Amorim wants intensity or technical specialist, and I don't think Hillman is either of those. I don't think he's quick enough. I don't think he's mobile enough about the pitch, and also not a technical specialist. He's another one who's like solid and all round, just not quite to the level of some of the other guys that we've spoken about. So if he was a good price, if he was quite cheap, yes, again, as a squad player, as a stopgap, but I think he'd be like 60, 70 million pound, which he's not worth, in my opinion. I don't think he's that level of player. He's a 40 million pound player for me. What about Agoume? Yeah, we literally, there he is, he's on the screen. We've been having that conversation. I think he'd be a good option. I heard we are now linked to Agoume, and I don't know anything about him. Do you mind doing a separate video on him? Well, my friend, if you go on my channel and go back to around, was it a month ago? No, a little bit longer than that, maybe 2 months ago, there is a video on my channel talking about Agoume and why I think defensively he could be the perfect fit for Manchester United. So feel free to go check that out. I'll probably do a community post linking it as well, providing YouTube actually works today. It's tough to get a good Premier League midfielder since there's a limited time in the window, so maybe we need to go outside. Yeah, obviously Premier League proven seems to have been the idea this summer with Cunha and Mbumo, the Ollie Watkins links and things like that, Baleba as well, because the idea is they'll settle in quicker and perform quicker. This late in the window, it feels a little bit tricky, just because Premier League teams will be bastards about the whole situation now, just because they're not going to want to strengthen teams in their own league this late in the window, right? So, yeah, it's probably a little bit tough, but who knows? Do you have any specific time when you go live? Easy for me to say. 11 a.m. UK time, British summer time, on a Tuesday and a Friday. So every Friday before the weekend, we will do tactical previews. So we'll figure out the ideal Manchester United 11 to win the game coming up that weekend. And then midweek on a Tuesday, we'll do ones more like this, or it might be assessing the United squad, or if we've got a midweek kickoff, then we'll do that. That will change a little bit more. But Tuesday and Friday is the plan at 11 a.m. Your Palace video is elite too. Thank you very much. It was a slightly quicker one, but I just wanted to cover it because I think the way that Crystal Palace used that 3-4-3 aggressively was a lot of fun. So if you guys do want to check it out, AJ Talks Tactics, second channel, how Crystal Palace used an aggressive 3-4-3 to completely nullify Chelsea. Also, if you check the chat, there is a link from David, and that is to my Agoume video. So if you do want to know more about him, head over there. Head over to that video. I'm quite pleased with that video. I think it's pretty good. Looking at Agoume, his strengths, his weaknesses, what he'd bring to the United team, and why I think he's a really good option for us. Appreciate it. Just saw the video and downloaded it. Watch it later. Enjoy, mate. How is your scouting in the Bundesliga midfield? I don't watch as much of the Bundesliga as I do the Premier League. Certainly not anymore. I used to watch it a lot. But a couple of the players that you've mentioned there, Felix Metscher, serious player. Serious player. Big fan of him. Like him a lot. I think he'd be a good signing for Newcastle. And I wouldn't mind him for United as well. Apart from I don't think he's quite the Bruno partner, but he's a seriously good player. As is Palacios. Seriously good talent. Stiller, I don't know so much about. I know that he's a good passing player. That's what I get told. I was actually left a little bit unconvinced just from some of the brief clips that I saw, but I couldn't really say too much about him. Next Tuesday, Grimsby preview. Exactly. Exactly. The true big matches. Yeah, there you go, guys. The other link in the chat from David there is a link to the second channel. It's called AJ Talks Tactics, where we don't talk about Manchester United. We talk about different football teams. Like I said, how Crystal Palace used their 3-4-3. 3-4-3. And I praised it. Would you believe it? They used it really well, really aggressively to stop Chelsea, which was fun to see how a different team is using a very similar system. So I would recommend checking it out. What about Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest? My friend, once I've finished streaming, this stream will go up as a video. He is one of the players that we've discussed today. Very good option. Absolutely love him. After the obvious midfield and goalkeeper, which position do you think we need to strengthen? I would say a more attacking profile on the left-hand side of the attack. Or left side of midfield, whatever you'll call this. The left wing-back position, a more attacking option. My sort of summer plan that I like the idea of, right, was to go more like this. This is what I want us to do in the summer. End up with a front line more like this. And rather than signing big on a right forward in Mbumo, I would have gone big on a Semenyo for left wing back. That was my ideal. That's what I wanted us to do. Didn't work out like that. Now we've got a slightly different balance to work with. But I think we can make it work. I think we can. Let's get Mbumo over here. Has Edison already been discussed? Not today, but there are other videos and streams previously that have discussed Edison if you wish to check them out. But yeah, I think wing back depth, more, just simply more attacking players next summer would be useful. Do you like inverted wing backs? It depends on who it is. It depends on the context of how it's used. I think when we saw a lot of inverted fullbacks the other year, that was a sort of fun evolution. Yeah, I guess I would say I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of it. If we move Bruno to inside forward, then would you think a Wharton/Mainu partnership could work? I don't think it's quite got enough legs to it. I don't think it's quite got enough. With Bruno in the inside forward, it helps because he would almost make it a three-man midfield at times. But I don't think it's quite got enough size and intensity and physicality to it. But it was interesting though, because Wharton and Will Hughes do a really good job for Palace, and neither of those are exactly physical monsters. Hughes certainly works hard, gets through his ground, is quite a robust player, but not a physical machine. So it's interesting that they make it work, and that's something I want to look into a little bit more. Yeah, central centre back next year as well is something I think we will be looking at, unless De Ligt has a really good season. Agoume or Anderson, who would you prefer? For me, it would be Anderson. I say he's one of my favourite players in the world right now, so it's always going to be him from me. He's the one I like a lot. I just think good players that can go into any system are what Manchester United Football Club need. I don't think we'll get Hjulman because Sporting are very, very stingy after losing Gyökeres. Yeah, they won't want to sell, I don't think. I'd like to see Dalot invert to left DM from left wing back, let Bruno push, and Cunha take the wide space. I don't know if we would ever see... Where is Dalot? Over here. I don't know if ever we would see that fixed, sort of like how Chelsea do it, right? They invert Cucurella and he actually stays there. I don't know that we would ever see that sort of being a fixed thing from United with Bruno going higher. But I would like to see that as a rotation that we eventually start to use. I would like to see that as sort of like a triangle that can move, that can rotate into different zones. That'd be quite a lot of fun. It's something that Arsenal do normally really well. They didn't at the weekend, but normally they do that quite nicely. I would like it if we had that. At the moment, we've got a sort of rotation between these two. It'd be a lot of fun if we could get the midfielder involved as well. Why is Xerxes staying? I just think because Højlund's going to go, which leaves us with Šeško and Xerxes as our only strikers. We can't go into the season with one senior striker, so Xerxes stays, I guess. I think also technically he's a good player for us. Anderson would also perfectly fit the model of our business this season, buying the best of the rest, absolutely. But he would cost a lot of money, we've got to remember that. Dalot played at left wing back last season. It failed miserably. Also, Dorgu is slowly becoming world class. I think Dorgu's had a good start. Yeah, he's doing well. I think he's... But this is where I've got the problem. In certain games, I think we want a more aggressive profile than Dorgu. Because as good as he is, he's not a winger who's going to isolate a fullback and dribble past him. So that's why I think next year we will want a more aggressive player that we can bring in. So almost on both sides, right? On the right, we've got that great conversation of we want to be a bit more cautious this week. Let's go Dalot. We want to be more attacking. Let's go Ahmad. I'd love it if we can do that on the left next season. So it's like we want to be more cautious. Let's go Dorgu. We want to be more attacking. Bang, here's a winger on the left side. That'd be quite fun because particularly having it on both sides would allow us to target opposition weaknesses a bit more. You know, the opposition are weak on the left. All right, let's go with the attack and right wing back. They're weak on the right. All right, attack and left wing back. I feel like that'd be quite fun. Give us a bit of versatility. Ugarte needs to pick it up. He's had 2 bad games so far. Yeah, Ugarte does strike me as one of those players, though, who needs to sort of warm up into the season as well. I do get that impression from him, the same way Casemiro needed to the other year. I get a similar vibe from Ugarte. Everyone is saying that Dalot is bad, but Dalot has been really good. I think Dalot's a great player. I think he's a great player. He's probably not got a perfect role in this system is his problem. I think as a fullback he's great. He's not quite a wingback is his problem at this football club. But generally speaking, yeah, I think he's a seriously good player. I personally think Cunha and Mbeumo and Xerxes will connect well. I think Cunha and Xerxes in particular will enjoy playing near each other. And if Mbeumo could then offer that running threat that he did yesterday, then yeah, I could see that working. Dorgu is just athletic. We need more skills. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Although that one cross he put in the other day was really good. The first time to Mbeumo, I did enjoy that. I'd like to see that more. Be more confident on that. What would you say if they didn't buy a midfielder and get a centre-back this season? Seeing as we have been linked to Guehi and Nathan Collins. Those two are both really good, by the way. Nathan Collins is seriously a nice player. Probably someone that doesn't get spoken about that much. But I like him a lot. But I'm not sure he's what we would need right now, unfortunately. He's sort of in that Maguire mould of player again, which I don't think would be right for us. I'm surprised we didn't start Maguire instead of Shaw on Sunday. Yeah, I think that was for the purpose of wide mobility. If we'd have gone Maguire, I keep losing my players. We've got too many of them. If we'd have gone Maguire wide, it wouldn't have worked. And De Ligt wide, good player, but not quite as mobile as Shaw. So I think it was a mobility thing up against Bukayo Saka, and also trying to press as well. Looking forward to having Licha though, yeah, definitely. We have loads of lads in and around the area, but we need bodies in the box. Oh, how frustrating was it? How frustrating was it? There was it 2 or 3 occasions where Dalot would get to here. He looks up and he tries to cross, and there's just no one in there. No one in there. Like, Sesko coming on helps it, but we seem to stop getting into those positions once he was on the pitch. It's quite frustrating. Dalot's a good professional squad player. Exactly that. Exactly that. And in the back 4, I think he can be a starter. I think what we might do, I'm going to do a quick poll, and then we're going to end the stream. I'm going to call it centre mid signing. We're going to go Agoume. We're going to go, we'll go through the 3 we discussed today. So Agoume, Wharton, and Anderson as the main ones we've discussed. And then option number 4 is going to be wait until next summer for a midfielder. Or Baleba, perhaps. Or Adam Wharton next year, perhaps. What would be your dream realistic midfield partnership, AJ? I think it's something like Baleba and Wharton in midfield. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Shaw was very good. It's sad that he's been injured frequently. Yeah. He's so injury prone. He needs to get back to his level. The tempo was so quick yesterday for a front line that has so many false nines. That's the thing. We've got a squad of a lot of players who like to act quick. Bruno likes to create or pull the trigger quick. Cunha likes to shoot quick. And Mbeumo acts quick. Sesko acts quick. If they're all going so quick, they don't quite keep up with each other. They're not quite on the same page. So that's going to take some work. Agoume now and get Baleba next season and move Casemiro and Ugarte on. See, David, that's a really good point. I saw someone say something on Twitter. I've also just seen that my chair is slowly, like, sinking and I'm getting shorter down the frame. But what was I going to say? I saw someone say that if you get Agoume now, he's sort of like the Ugarte replacement, and then Baleba could be the Casemiro replacement in terms of how we long-term assess the squad, and I think that's a good way of looking at it. Let's have a look. What's the poll saying? So we've currently got 36%, no, it's fluctuating a lot. 38% Agoume, 31 Wharton, 16 Anderson, 15 Waite. Are you fine with signing a midfielder but not being able to sign a goalkeeper? Look how much I'm so short. Is my chair at max height? It's going to be embarrassing if it is. I was basically at the bottom of the frame. Am I fine with signing a midfielder, not a keeper? I think I would do midfielder before a goalkeeper. I think that would be the way that I would view it. I think that's the way around that I would go. I just think if we sign a midfielder, a better midfielder, we can be better at every aspect of the game, which hopefully means the goalkeeper doesn't have to do so much. That's kind of how I would like it. The poll is fairly strongly in favour of Agoume. And I mean, fortunately, he's the one we're being linked with at the moment. And in terms of United actually signing someone this summer, I could see him being the most likely. Mount is going to be massive this season. Started really well. Really, really well. But Bruno is the one who is in the pivot for sure. Like, he's a guarantee. Pretty much. I think there'll be certain games where he's pushed into the front 3 and someone else comes in. But yeah, largely I think he'll be higher. Keeper is just an agenda. We have more issues bigger than the goalkeeper. I wouldn't say the keeper one is an agenda. You know, like our two keepers have been terrible at times in the past 12 months. But I also agree, yeah, I think there's other areas first. Midfield, then keeper, then a wing back, then centre back, etc. next summer. Is sort of how I view the situation. But that is more of a long-term thing. That is more of a long-term thing. I think for today, there's nothing else to talk about. I feel like we've gone through pretty much everything that I wanted to cover with regards to the midfield position. Did AJ start the Agoume trend, though? I might have done. I feel like we were fairly early on that train, right? Like, 2 months ago we were talking about him. Now everyone's talking about him. I'm just saying. If we sign him, it's because of us. It's because of this community if we get him, all right? We manifested it. Hopefully, we will see. I personally still want a midfielder. I think we desperately need one. I think the midfielders are still a real problem. So I would like to sign someone else. Honestly, those 4 on screen there, they all make us better. In different ways. Some more likely than others. Some we've missed the ship on that as well. But I think it'd all improve us. David, the last thing that I would do is give the mic to Steve. I'd give the mic to Manu before I gave the mic to Steve. I'll have that known. Elliot Anderson gives me Steven Gerrard vibes. I was going to say that earlier, but I thought I'd get slaughtered in the chat because of what fan base we are. But yeah, same. With a bit more almost like silky technical at times as well. Just saying. Anyway, I think that is everything that I wanted to discuss for today. I'm late to this. Is Agoume on the list? I've just read that out, but I'm guessing you're at the start of the stream rather than the end of the stream, so it's kind of a bit awkward. So I can't really reply to you. For anyone who has missed any of this stream but wants to watch it back, wants to hear me talking about Agoume or Wharton or Anderson or Amorim or the midfield, whatever, this is going to be left up as a video on the channel, so you can go back and watch it in your own time, even if you only watch it in 5-minute segments, completely up to you, but it is going to be accessible for everyone. But yeah, in terms of the stream, I think that is everything that I wanted to cover today. I think, actually, I'll give my order that I would go through these guys. Pause. the order of which I would approach them in the transfer market. Anderson would be near the top, I tell you. I think it would be Anderson this year, Agoume, Wharton next year. Sander Berge isn't really a realistic one. I just want to prove a point with him. That's sort of my final take on it. Apart from that, though, we are finished. So thank you guys very much for the support on the stream, as always, and the community and the channel in general recently. It's been amazing. If you want to see more football talk, higher up in the chat, there was a link to an Agoume video that I've done before. Check it out if you want to learn a bit more about him. There was also a link to a second channel video where I discussed how Crystal Palace used the formation that we use, but they used it more aggressively to nullify Chelsea. And also at the top of the chat is a link to our wonderful Discord server. So make sure to check it all out if you like football, which I'm guessing you do. And yeah, I will see you in one of those locations or for a video later today or tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure right now. Plenty of content still coming though. It's a big month for Manchester United. Hopefully, we're going to be busy in the next 2 weeks talking about transfers. Will we or not? I don't know. In terms of streams, I'll see you all on Friday.